It started with a simple rolling stop. But that day, my rookie mistake didn't just cost me my badge, it left me owing $2 million to the FBI. The blue and red lights painted the manicured lawns of Oak Ridge Estates in frantic, silent strokes. It was the kind of quiet, wealthy neighborhood where the only crime was usually a teenager's bad party or a stolen garden gnome. But my gut, the one they spent 18 weeks at the academy telling me to trust, was screaming. 6 months on the job, and I still had that new cop smell, that itch to prove I wasn't just some kid playing dress-up. This felt like my chance. It started with a simple rolling stop. A gleaming black Lincoln, the kind presidents ride in, glided through an intersection like the stop sign was merely a suggestion. It wasn't aggressive, just arrogant. I flipped on the lights, and the car pulled over instantly, smoothly, without a hint of panic. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Normal people panic. They brake too hard. They fumble for their papers. They look in the rearview mirror with wide, scared eyes. Not this guy. I approached from the passenger side, my partner Henderson covering me from the cruiser. The window hummed down, and the driver looked at me. He was a black man, maybe late 30s, early 40s, dressed in a suit so sharp it could have cut glass. He didn't look like he belonged in Oak Ridge, not driving anyway. The expensive suit, the powerful car. It was a math equation where the answer was trouble. I know what you're thinking, but it wasn't about race. It was about things being out of place. It was about the picture not making sense. "License and registration, please," I said, my voice a little too deep, trying to project the authority I was still growing into. He didn't say a word. He just reached into his jacket with 2 fingers, slow and deliberate, and pulled out a wallet. He handed me a driver's license, Marcus Davies. The address was in Virginia, another flag. What was a guy from Virginia doing cruising through a residential cul-de-sac in suburban California on a Tuesday afternoon? "Mr. Davies," I began, "do you know why I pulled you over today?" He finally looked at me, his eyes cool and analytical, like he was cataloging my every flaw. "I assume it's because my right rear tire failed to come to a complete cessation of movement for the requisite 3 seconds at the previous intersection." The way he said it, so precise, so mocking. It grated on me. This wasn't a scared citizen. This was a guy who knew the game, and he was bored by it. My eyes drifted to the passenger seat. On it sat a heavy-duty, reinforced Pelican case, the kind with locks you could use to stop a tank. It was latched shut. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This was it. This was more than a traffic ticket. "What's in the case, Mr. Davies?" I asked, my hand moving instinctively to rest on the butt of my Glock. He gave a small, humorless smile. "That's not relevant to this traffic stop, officer." "I'll be the judge of what's relevant," I shot back, the academy training kicking in. "Establish control. Do not let them dictate the encounter." "Are you transporting anything illegal? Weapons? Large sums of currency?" "No," he said, his voice flat. Then you won't mind opening the case for me." He leaned back in his leather seat, the picture of calm. "Actually, I do mind. You have no probable cause to search my vehicle or my property based on a minor traffic infraction. You know that, and I know that." He was right, legally, but my gut was telling me he was wrong. Henderson gave me a slight shake of the head from behind the Lincoln, a silent warning to de-escalate, to just write the ticket and move on. But I couldn't. The smug look on this guy's face, the locked case, the out-of-state plates. It was a movie plot unfolding right in front of me, and I was the hero cop who was about to crack it wide open. I was going to be the rookie who brought in the big one. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step out of the vehicle," I said, my voice hard. For the first time, a flicker of something crossed his face. Annoyance. "On what grounds?" "My grounds are that your story isn't adding up, and I have a reasonable suspicion that you're engaged in criminal activity." It was textbook wording, but it felt flimsy even as I said it. He sighed, a deep, weary sound, as if dealing with me was the most tiresome part of his day. "Officer, let me give you some friendly advice. Write your ticket. We can both be on our way, and you can go back to feeling important." That was it. The condescension, the disrespect, the wall of calm defiance. It flipped a switch in me. No more questions. I reached for his door handle. "Step out of the car, sir. Now." I pulled the door open, my body angled for a fight. He didn't move. He just stared at my hand on his door. Then he slowly turned his head and locked his eyes onto mine. They weren't bored anymore. They were glacial. "Officer," he said, his voice dropping to a low, deadly serious tone, "you are making a catastrophic mistake. Take your hand off my door, get back in your car, and drive away. This is your only warning." A warning? He was warning me? The sheer audacity of it was like gasoline on a fire. All the little red flags, the suit, the car, the case, they all coalesced into one blaring siren in my head. This guy wasn't just a suspect, he was a professional. He was trying to use intimidation, to play mind games with a rookie cop he thought he could roll over. Not today, not on my watch. My grip on the door handle tightened until my knuckles were white. "Threatening a police officer is a felony, Mr. Davies," I snarled, my voice shaking with a mixture of adrenaline and manufactured rage. "I now have every reason I need. Get out of the car on your knees, hands behind your head. Now!" Henderson was yelling something from the cruiser, probably my name, probably telling me to stand down. But it was just noise. The world had narrowed to me and this man in the Lincoln. To my shock, he complied. But he did it with a chilling grace, not the clumsy panic of a criminal getting caught. He unbuckled his seatbelt, swung his legs out onto the pristine asphalt, and slowly stood up. He was taller than I expected, with the solid build of someone who spent a lot of time in a gym. He turned his back to me and laced his fingers behind his head without me even having to repeat the command. I holstered my weapon and pulled out my cuffs, the metal cold and heavy in my hand. As I cinched the first cuff around his wrist, I felt a surge of victory. I'd done it. I'd trusted my gut, and I was right. Henderson was beside me now, his face pale. "Miller, what the hell are you doing? This is a traffic stop." "It's more than that now, Henderson. He threatened me. He's non-compliant." I was rattling off buzzwords, trying to build a legal fortress around my actions. I patted him down, feeling nothing but a wallet and a phone. I pulled the wallet out again, flipping through it more thoroughly this time. Driver's license, a few credit cards, and then something else. A laminated card with a gold seal and a hologram. It felt heavier, more substantial than a regular ID. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent Marcus Davies. My blood ran cold. It felt like I'd swallowed a block of ice. I stared at the ID, then at the man in cuffs, then back at the ID. It had to be a fake, a high-quality fake, but a fake nonetheless. No way was this guy an FBI agent. They didn't run from rookie cops. "This is a pretty good fake," I said, my voice lacking the conviction it had moments before. He didn't turn his head. He just spoke to the manicured lawn across the street. "It's not fake, Officer Miller. And in my wallet, you'll also find a card with a number on it. It's for my supervisor, Special Agent in Charge Reynolds. I suggest you call him. You should also know that my vehicle is equipped with full audio and video surveillance that is currently live streaming to a secure federal server. Every word you've said, every action you've taken since you approached my window has been recorded." The air left my lungs. Henderson snatched the ID from my hand, his eyes going wide. "Oh my God, Miller, it's real. The seal is real." He fumbled for his radio. "Dispatch, I need my sergeant at my location, non-emergency." "No, wait. Make it code 3. My sergeant, a grizzly veteran named Davis who had seen it all, arrived in under 2 minutes. He took one look at the cuffed man standing calmly by the Lincoln, one look at the FBI credentials in Henderson's trembling hand, and one look at the smug, triumphant expression that was rapidly melting off my face. He didn't yell, he didn't scream. He just looked at me with a profound sense of disappointment that was worse than any verbal beatdown. "Miller," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "What did you do?" Before I could answer, 2 black Suburbans, the kind you see in movies with tinted windows and no plates, came screaming around the corner and screeched to a halt, boxing in my cruiser and the Lincoln. 4 men in dark suits and earpieces jumped out before the vehicles had even stopped rocking. They moved with a predatory efficiency that made my 18 weeks at the academy feel like a summer camp. They didn't even look at us. Their eyes were on the Pelican case in the Lincoln. One of them opened the car door, retrieved the case, and carried it to the rear Suburban as if it were the nuclear launch codes. Then a 5th person emerged from the lead vehicle. A woman in a severe gray pantsuit, her face etched with a controlled fury. She walked past my sergeant, past Henderson, and stopped directly in front of me. She didn't look at my badge or my face. She looked right through me. "Officer Miller," she said, her voice like chipping ice. "Special Agent in Charge Reynolds, you have just compromised a 7-month-long federal sting operation. You have assaulted a federal officer, and you have illegally detained him in the process of his official duties. Hand your weapon and your badge to your sergeant. Your career is over. We'll discuss your freedom later." The world went from sharp and adrenalized to blurry and numb. My sergeant didn't even have to ask. I unbuckled my duty belt, the familiar weight suddenly feeling alien and shameful. I handed him my Glock, then fumbled with the badge on my chest, the pin catching on the fabric. It felt like I was tearing off a piece of my own skin. The silence in that cul-de-sac was deafening, broken only by the squawk of radios and the quiet hum of the government vehicles. Agent Davies was uncuffed by one of his own men, who handed him a pair of sunglasses. He put them on, erasing any last trace of the man I had pulled over. He was a federal agent again, and I was just nothing. The next few hours were a bureaucratic nightmare. I was escorted back to the station, not in my own cruiser, but in the back of my sergeant's car, like a common criminal. I wasn't put in a holding cell, but in an empty interrogation room that felt colder and more confining than any jail. My union rep showed up, a portly man with tired eyes who looked at me like I was a lost cause before he'd even heard the full story. He advised me to say nothing, which was easy because I couldn't think of a single word that wouldn't make things worse. They told me the Pelican case contained marked bills, over $1 million in cash. It was the buy money for the final phase of Operation Downfall, a massive operation targeting a money laundering ring that operated through the seemingly legitimate businesses of some of the wealthiest residents in Oak Ridge Estates. Davies was undercover, playing the part of a high-level courier from out of state. His rolling stop wasn't arrogance, it was a pre-arranged signal to the surveillance teams, including the ones in the Suburbans, that he was proceeding to the drop point. My heroic traffic stop had blown the entire operation just minutes before the final transaction. The targets, likely alerted by the commotion, had vanished into thin air. 7 months of work, millions in federal resources, all torched by a rookie cop on a power trip. The department fired me before the sun went down. My termination papers cited gross incompetence, insubordination, and conduct unbecoming of an officer. My career, the only thing I'd ever wanted, was over in less time than it takes to watch a movie. But that was just the beginning. A week later, I was served. A civil lawsuit filed by the Department of Justice on behalf of Agent Marcus Davies. They weren't just suing me. They were making an example of me. The charges were staggering: violation of civil rights under color of law, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and tortious interference with the federal investigation. My union-provided lawyer read the filing and just shook his head. "They're trying to ruin you, kid," he said. "And they have the ammo to do it. The lawsuit dragged on for over a year. My name was mud. I was the subject of national news articles about police overreach, a poster boy for everything wrong with law enforcement. My face was plastered everywhere. I couldn't get a job as a security guard. I lost my apartment, my car, and most of my friends. I moved back in with my parents, a 25-year-old failure, sleeping in his childhood bedroom. The settlement conference was the first time I'd seen Agent Davies since that day. He was in the same kind of impeccable suit, looking calm and professional. I was in a cheap, ill-fitting suit I'd bought at a thrift store. I looked like what I was, a broken man. My lawyer had told me to expect a settlement in the high six figures. But the number the DOJ lawyer slid across the table was so astronomical it seemed like a typo. $2 million. My lawyer nearly choked. That's insane. He has no assets. You can't get blood from a stone. The DOJ lawyer, a man with a face as severe as Agent Reynolds, didn't even look at me. We're not interested in his assets. We're interested in the judgment. This will follow him for the rest of his life. Every dollar he ever earns, a piece of it will be ours. It's a message. And then Agent Davies spoke for the first time. It's not just a message, he said, his voice even and measured. He was looking directly at me. It's a lesson. I gave you an out, Officer Miller. I told you to get back in your car. I told you that you were making a mistake. You had a choice. You chose ego over duty. You chose prejudice over procedure. You saw a black man in an expensive car in a nice neighborhood, and you saw a criminal. You didn't see a public servant doing his job, just like you. He let that hang in the air, the truth of it hitting me harder than any punch. He was right. I had let my ego, my desire to be the hero, blind me to everything. I had built a narrative in my head based on flimsy stereotypes, and I wouldn't let it go. The $2 million isn't for me, Davies continued, his gaze unwavering. It will be paid into a fund for victims of civil rights violations by law enforcement. Your mistake is going to help the kind of people you swore an oath to protect, but failed. That's the justice here. I ended up signing the settlement. It was that or face a trial that would have been a public crucifixion. I declared bankruptcy, of course, but the judgment remains. A portion of every paycheck I ever earn for the rest of my life will be garnished. It's a constant, humiliating reminder. I work in a warehouse now, stacking boxes. Sometimes a police car will drive by, and for a second I'll feel that old pull, that ache for the life I threw away. But then I remember Agent Davies's face, the cool disappointment in his eyes, and the $2 million price tag on my failure. I didn't just lose my job that day. I lost my pride, my future. And I paid an incredibly high price for a lesson I was too arrogant to learn on my own.